Welcome back, Texas A&M fans. Week 2 in the SEC kicking off. We're going to break it all down. Jake McKeever and Marshall here, ready to talk through kind of a tough weekend of Texas A&M baseball. But before we jump into that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Home Field Apparel. Use code CBC15. Get all your Aggie gear from there. Or if you're starting to hop off the bandwagon and get on another team, be sure to use that stuff there. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
Let's do it.
Tuesday, Rice Midweek. It was, like I had said last week, kind of a recipe for a letdown. And it almost came through. A&M won 8-7. Rice had a 4-run ninth inning, as well as being up 3-0. A&M ended up taking the game in one of the weirder ways with a walk-off hit by pitch for Boast. Few notes: Jack Moss had 3 hits. Hunter Haas had 2 hits. Trevor Warner DH'd with 2 hits, and Jace Lavalette had 2 hits as well. We've been talking a lot about the lineup. Stanley Tucker got the start in center field. Hank Bard got the start behind the plate, but JD Gregson came in. And then obviously Wansing, or not Wansing, who ended up pitching Sunday?
Um, Lampkin.
Lampkin was not going to be the midweek guy. It
Yep.
was Wyatt Tucker. Lasted 2 1/3, 5 hits, 3 runs. All of them earned 2 walks. Sadejo came in 3 1/3, 2 hits, no runs. Aschenbach 2 1/3, 2 runs. Willie Johnston, uh, 2 1/3 innings, 2 runs, and then Hogan with the win, only pitching that one out. A few notes. I think that this is kind of the line for Willie Johnson. I know that Slosh probably wanted
Yeah.
to see if he could pitch on 2 days rest, and he obviously couldn't after pitching a long time on Sunday. What did you kind of see from the Aggies here?
Yeah, I thought it was it kind of foreshadowed this weekend, especially from a pitching standpoint. Really short outing by Tucker to start on the mound. And then you need better play out of your top guys like Ashenbach and Johnson out of the pen. I know Johnson came in on short days of rest. But really that's just what we saw later on in the weekend. Just your top guys out of the bullpen, just and starting on the mound, just not getting it done. And so the offense really just kind of kept you in the game. And I mean, Rice, to their credit, they jumped on the Ags 3-0, and then they just never gave up. Put up four in the ninth, and you know I feel like the Aggies were I don't want to use the word luck, but I mean they somehow found a way in the ninth to, I mean, really weird way to walk off a game with a walk off hit by pitch.
Yeah, definitely a weird game. A few notes for Rice too. Guy Garibay was back in the lineup for them, went 3 for 5,
Mm,
and was really kind of a thorn in their side.
yeah,
Um, Other than that, really nobody impressive. And when I saw Rice play again on Sunday, again, kind of more of the same, where they really
yeah,
didn't have the top end pitching. But again, um, Jace Lavalette hasn't been hitting the ball, gets 2 hits, and
yeah,
kind of gets himself back in the lineup. And then Stanley Tucker going over and actually playing himself out of the lineup on
yeah,
Friday. So this was the last time we will play Rice. I know that this
yeah.
is the third
Finally,
time. Third time wasn't a charge for the Owls. I will be glad to never see them again. Um,
yeah. It was good to see Warner get back in there and get two knocks in that game.
yeah, he did DH after his one at bat. Um, Played pretty good. Had a few good at bats, and then obviously had 2 hits and 2 RBIs. But we'll go ahead and move to Friday.
Yeah,
Texas A&M dropped the game one. Tennessee 10, A&M 4. 4 runs on 3 hits. Tennessee had 10 hits. Nathan Dedmer lasted somehow 5 innings, giving up 9 runs, and then Ty Sexton in kind of a mop-up role went 3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. Dolander for Tennessee, 6 1/3, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks. Seth Halverson in mop-up duty, 2 1/3, no hits, 1 run. This one was kind of an interesting one because
yeah,
A&M jumped on Dolander early. They got out to the 2-0 lead off the Moss single and then the Bach. And it really kind of, if you're a Tennessee fan, started to make you a little bit nervous because he was not
mm,
very effective last week against Missouri. But he quickly turned it around and kind of
yeah,
silenced the Aggies bats. And then Tennessee in the bottom half of the first put up a 5 spot, really fast scoring too as well. And that was kind of the story of the whole game is 7 runs through 2 innings. I don't think you're going to win any games in the SEC with that. And it was kind of more
No.
of the same with Dittmer, where we talked all about it about how his inconsistency, and I think it kind of finally caught up with the Aggies here.
Yeah, you're seeing inconsistency out of Detmer, but I think you're also seeing it throughout the entire team. I mean, you saw it this whole weekend where the Aggies they came out on fire. They score every single game this series. They came out and put up at least one run in the top of the first, and so and then with your pitching staff, you're given a lead, you're giving some room for error, and you just got to capitalize. You have the momentum, you just got to capitalize that. And so I think we're seeing inconsistency. I think that's because of an inconsistent lineup as well. Because Slosh, he doesn't know really who can step up, especially from the pitching aspect of it. You come in with your guys, Ashenbach, Johnston, Cortez, and then Lampkin, Lansing, Detmer. Like those supposed to be your top dogs, and you really just don't know who, like, no one's really playing to their potential right now. And so
Yeah,
it's a really
it seems like
confusing
they
time for
almost play
Slosh.
musical chairs to
Yeah.
see, and one of them throws really good and
Hmm.
makes the other ones look bad. Last week it was obviously Detmer, and then this
Hmm.
week it was really none of them. But the only really consistent thing that we can count on is Hunter Haas to be the
Yeah,
shortstop.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it's, go
there's a
ahead.
platoon with Moss, Boast, and Targosh,
Hmm.
obviously. I really don't know what goes into that, but it seems like those three kind of rotate between second, first, and DHing. And then Lavalettes going to play a corner outfield spot, and depending on who he slots once and left, and obviously Warner's been injured, but I think he kind of locks down third base again,
Hmm.
especially the way Kent's been playing. But
Yeah.
Kason Wells played center in the SEC series, went 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. I'm not going to sit here and dash Slosh because he obviously sees this team a lot more than I do, but it is kind of puzzling after what we saw Sunday to not see Stanley Tucker in the lineup there.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it earlier, like how we thought Tucker played himself out of the lineup on Tuesday against Rice, but I mean, he was on fire on last Sunday
Mm.
against LSU, and I just think that I wanted to see more of Tucker even after going over on Tuesday. I mean, that's a midweek, and I get it. It's one of his first. I think was his first start. No, it was his second start, I think. But
Yeah, he started that
started early
Tech
in the week.
game, if you remember
Yeah.
correctly,
Hmm.
and he kind of had two weird at bats and got yanked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the leash is really short with him, and I'm really not sure
Yeah.
why. Maybe they don't want to hurt
Hmm.
his confidence, hitting 400 last year
Yeah.
in JUCO play. But something's up with him, and
Yeah.
Kason Wells. I wouldn't say he's earned himself into the lineup or earned himself out of the
Hmm.
lineup, but
Yeah.
again, that one was kind of puzzly. And then Hank Bard, we finally got a hit
Got
from a
enough.
catcher
Yeah,
and an
exactly. And
RBI too. I feel like that's the one thing we've been searching for this
mhm,
entire time. Is it seems like all of them. I wouldn't say they don't want to hit, but it seems like they struggle, and when they do get
yeah,
at bats,
yeah,
it's kind of like a bloop hit. It never really seemed to
mhm,
square up the ball.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And especially when I mean, I really don't know how Detmer went 5 innings, or Schloss let him go 5 innings, giving up 9 runs. But yeah, you just that's tough. Whenever I mean, it was the story of the weekend. A&M starters just getting
Yeah,
hit, missing pitch. All three of them, they're leaving their fastball over the plate, hanging their breaking ball. And Tennessee, you just can't do that against a really
walking.
good
Yeah,
Tennessee line. Yeah, walking, and you just can't do that against Tennessee. But Sexton, to his credit, came in and actually did pretty good. I feel like every time Sexton's come in this season, he's done pretty good.
yeah, and I would say that as well. And worth noting too that every Tennessee starter got a hit, and you're not going to win any games when
No.
that happens. Maui Ohuna had two.
Hmm.
Um, Jared Dickey had two, and I take that back. Griffin Merritt went 0 for 4, so 8 of the 9 hitters end up
Yeah.
reaching base. Um, Jay Slavalette, who really hadn't been seeing the ball well in SEC play, he went 1 for 2,
Yeah.
um, scored a run as well. But again, the pitching. I mean, if you
Yeah.
give up anytime your Friday guy gives up, I would say even more than 5 runs,
Oh.
you're not going to win any games, let
Hmm.
alone the
Yeah.
whole time. We'll go ahead and move to the Saturday game, and this one kind of felt almost like a repeat of Saturday in the LSU series. A&M
Hmm.
jumped out early. Um, they had two in the first, and then Tennessee roared back, had one in the second, three in the third, and then that was really it for the A&M bullpen.
Yep.
They had, for the A&M bats until the sixth. Got four in the sixth, one in the seventh. I believe they were all with two outs, two in the sixth. And again, more of the same. A&M gets a big lead, and the pitching gives it back to them. Troy Wansing, 1 1/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned, 2 walks. Evan Aschenbach, 3 2/3, 2 hits, no runs. Brad Rudis, 1 1/3, 3 hits, 3 runs, all of them earned. And then Willie Johnston, no hits, 2 innings, but obviously took the loss on the sac fly.
Yeah.
I'm not really going to dog on Brad Rudis. He's been really effective all year, and this was kind of his first bad outing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you remove Troy Wansing, this is a completely different game. And this is now 2 weeks in a row where he's faced elite competition and really struggled.
Yeah, Lansing. I'm confused whenever I watch him because obviously the first game, his first start of the year, not quality, and then it seemed for 3 or 4 weeks he was on fire. Look,
Yeah.
I thought he was the best pitcher on A&M's roster, and then the last 2 weeks against quality competition, he just hasn't been able to get it done. And so those 3 or 4 weeks where he was doing really good, obviously it was against guys like Northern Kentucky and Portland, those teams. And so it's confusing because you start to wonder, can he compete against elite SEC play?
I mean, the story of his season, 5 innings, 2 walks, Northern Kentucky 6 innings, 0 walks, and then
Mm-hmm.
LSU 6 walks, Tennessee 2 walks and 1 1/3.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't say he's afraid, but it feels like he doesn't want to attack hitters, and he feels his stuff can get swing and miss. And as SEC hitters have kind of proven early in the season, he really doesn't have the swing and miss stuff.
No.
When he had 7 strikeouts against Seattle, 9 Portland, 7 Rice, 10 Northern Kentucky, we haven't seen the swing and miss stuff from him.
Yeah, we haven't. And then Aschenbach, not 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 bad, but I like just watching. Like, he obviously didn't give up a run, but he just didn't look dominant like he did against Texas Tech or like some of those other appearances that he's had as well.
Yeah, but I don't think he needs to be. I think he needs to sit
Yeah.
around 91, 92, come in there, give us four innings on a weekend to get us into the bridge. And again, Brad Rudis has earned himself a bullpen role, being first or second out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
He did have a bad outing, but I don't expect that to continue for him. And then Willie Johnston, you can't walk the leadoff guy.
No.
That's the
Yeah.
destiny.
And when you have 4 base on balls and 2 innings pitched, like you can't have that out of your
and you can't have the walk and the wild pitch and back to back to put him at the runner on second. That was just a recipe for disaster. Hitting wise, go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, well,
I was moving on.
I think another thing with Johnson, some of those late inning guys out of the pen in that game was Coffer came in late in the game.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused why Schloss did that. Do you know why?
I don't think Hank Bard had any injuries. Let me check and see. I'm 90% sure he played Sunday. He's done that a few times. I think with his outfield platoon where he tries to get a spark, but maybe the matchup I think would be the other thing. But Coffer didn't stay in. Gregson came in after he hit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Outfield notes: Cason Wells in right field. Tab Tracy in center. Jordan Thompson pinch hit and Stanley Tucker pinch hit. Lavalette was in left this game. His name is Cason Wells. Didn't play this game. I think he's kind of played himself out of the lineup at this point. Or not Caden Kent.
Kent.
Yeah, I think he's kind of played himself out of the lineup, and especially as you don't want to kill his confidence as a freshman.
No, you don't.
But he's been slumping. I'll look up his stats here. Lavalette, I think he's going to be your second outfielder, and then Thompson, he's really struggled. Yeah, 0 for Friday. He had 1 hit of the LSU weekend, 2 hits against Northern Kentucky. So he really hasn't been seeing the ball very well. His average peaked at 326 before that Northern Kentucky one, down to 257. I think it'll probably be the end of him. And I don't think that this is the lineup though with
Yeah.
Cason Wells and Tab Tracy in there.
No.
I think it's got to be one or the other, and they
Yeah.
platoon, and I don't think that's a recipe for success. But again, Lavalette, we hinted at it earlier, 2 for 4, with obviously the big double that kind of, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say blew it open for A&M, but it definitely kind of made you feel a little bit comfortable as a fan.
Yeah.
Jack Moss, more of the same, 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Boast only 1 for 5, so he kind of had an off weekend. But again,
Yeah.
the way he's been tearing off the cover, I kind of see that, and then Warner added a hit as well. But again, this one really hurt as an A&M fan to watch
Yeah.
because it did leave such a bad taste in your mouth. I mean, you had a chance to even the series, and they squandered it.
Yeah. I think it kind of took the wind out of their sails for Sunday as well.
Yeah, and I know that it's kind of like I said, it was a repeat of LSU on Saturday, and I just think this time they didn't respond, which is weird because they came out and scored runs in the first. But again, Targosh really didn't have a very good weekend,
Yeah.
I don't think.
He was over on the whole week.
Yeah, he was. He has
Yeah.
been
And
over since Saturday against
yeah.
LSU.
I
He's
think
he's
he's gonna. I think Schloss is gonna kind of see what someone else can offer. Instead of Tar, because he's dropped below. He's hitting sub 200 now, and so I think that kind of trio between Boast, Moss, and Targosh is going to kind of change.
yeah, but I think Targosh plays the best first base out of them. But the
Yeah,
flip side of that is, I mean, first base is obviously a hitting first position. You don't
exactly.
really need a very good defensive one. I think Minnick's set to come back in the next couple weeks, if I
Yeah.
remember his timeline correctly.
Hmm.
But that's what's going to get it really interesting
Hmm.
is when Minnick comes back, who first off, which one of the outfielders is the short end of the stick
Yeah.
with Wells, Tracy, and even to some extent Jordan Thompson. I
Hmm.
think Lavallette's earned himself in the lineup.
I think so
Um,
too. I mean, he was 7 for 14 on the weekend, and strikeouts was his big issue. He only had three on this whole, or he was 7 for 14 on the whole week, and he only had three strikeouts this entire week.
yeah, and he hit the ball hard. I know that
Hmm.
a lot. I mean, every time I've seen him, even the hits that he gets, I feel like aren't necessarily cheap hits, but definitely below his potential a little bit.
Yeah, one
So it
hundred
was good to
percent.
really see, and I think that this was the first time he really saw the ball well. But again,
Yeah,
I think Targosh, Thompson, Cason Wells, like that whole quad group of people,
yeah.
they need they need two spots. Obviously, they need a center fielder slash
Hmm.
left fielder, and then something with Moss and like I think Caden King can play infield.
Yeah,
Stanley can play infield. So it's kind of a weird situation where they all can play. I think Bose can play the outfield too. So it's kind of a
yeah, he
weird
can.
situation with all of them.
Yeah, and I think that unless they start, in the next few weeks, if they don't get a consistent lineup, I think the Aggies are going to keep seeing inconsistency in their results.
Yeah, and I think Boast, Moss, and Haas, I think are the three that you can count on in the Aggie lineup.
Yeah,
And at least for me, I know that Haas is having a change of scenery and having a really good year, but you have to feel like he's going to return and regress back to where he was last year,
yeah.
even a little bit. Like the way he's been tearing the cover off the ball,
Hmm.
I I fear for an Aggie lineup that has to rely on
To
Hunter
rely
Haas.
rely on him as
Yeah,
one of your top hitters.
yeah. I mean, I've always said it kind of feels like him hitting is gravy because
Hmm.
he's obviously a glove first guy. He has 1,000 fielding percentage in the SEC this year. He's stolen a ton of hits, and again, the bat on top of that is has been fun to watch. But again, you got to like Targos led the SEC in RBIs last year. Jordan Thompson had a ton of really big hits down the stretch for A&M.
Yeah,
There's a ton of guys, and even Warner to some extent. I know he's had some injuries and he was sick the Houston weekend, so he's obviously played through a lot of it. But again, those are the guys that you were supposed to be counting on when the
yeah,
season started.
yeah. 100%. I mean, I went in and counted. I think it's 7 or 8 guys that you have playing in the field that were not playing high level or weren't playing Division One baseball last year. They were either playing high school or JUCO. And so
Yeah,
when
and
you have,
JUCO guys, I mean, I know you're a JUCO bandit, so you're probably
Mhm.
not gonna like this comment, but JUCOs are almost like underclassmen in high school. Like it's
yeah,
because there's a hole in your roster.
mhm,
Very rarely does a JUCO guy, unless it's somebody like Skeens or Tommy White, very rarely do transfers come in and start immediately.
yeah, 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 100%. I agree.
And we'll move to Sunday. Lineup notes. Cason Wells was in right. Jordan Thompson was in center, but Caden Kent came and pitched hit. Hank Bard behind the plate went 1 for 3. Catching is obviously a draining position, but I feel like from our best lineup standpoint, right now, Bard has played himself into the lineup. But again, we said the same thing about Stanley last week,
Yeah,
and he's kind of been around that window. Haas,
yeah,
2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Jack Moss, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Boast went over but added an RBI. Lavalette, 3 for 4 with an RBI. Warner, 1 for 4 with an RBI. JT, 1 for 3. And again, this is another one where you feel like it kind of got away from you. A&M
mhm,
got out early, up 1-0. Then we were 2-2 in the fourth, and then from there it's kind of where the wheels fell off. Ended up being 9-3 in the ninth. Obviously, they had the 3 runs late that kind of made it look a little bit better. A few of them were unearned. Pitching notes: Lampkin, 4 1/3, 8 hits, 6 runs, 68 pitches. Um, I think that's about as good as an outing as you could hope for from him. I know he kind of lost it down the stretch and kind of started second, third time through the lineup, giving up some contact. Chris Cortez, an inning. Um, we'll get into why he only pitched an inning, I believe. 1 hit, 1 run earned. Braden Garcia, 1 1/3, 2 runs, both of them allowed. Hogan, 1 inning, 1 hit, no runs, but again, it was mop up duty. Drew Bream, 4 1/3 for Tennessee, 2 runs. Again, I don't think you're going to face too many Sunday guys that are as good as Drew Bream. But
no,
again, they got on him early, and again, I feel like they kind of squandered it.
yeah, yeah. Just good. Like we said before, like you come out on fire and it just kind of dies out.
Yeah.
And you said you kind of expect like thought that was as good as Lampkin could get. I honestly was expecting more out of him. Honestly,
Mhm.
like 4 1/3, six runs. Yeah, I feel like that just kills you, like kills your momentum as a team. Or like in the first half of the game, you give up 6 runs out of your starting pitcher.
Mhm.
I don't know, but
Yeah, and I think it was more about the distance of it. I mean, obviously, you kind of faltered there late with the 3 runs.
yeah,
Um, I think this whole pitching staff is gonna be seeing Zane Denton in their sleep. He was
hmm
absolutely on fire the entire
yeah,
weekend for Tennessee. Um, Hopefully, we never have to see Zane Denton again. Um, but I think we'll close that on the Tennessee one. And
yeah,
I know before that, I know as a fan, you want to win every single game that you do. But 1-5 in the SEC is obviously not where A&M expects to be. But we played the number one team in the country. We played and the favorite in the West, and we played the favorite of the East to start out. So especially on the road, I mean, you would have liked them to be 2-4 coming home, but it's
yeah.
really not time to hit the panic button. After
No,
this week, the schedule really, really lightens up, and as long as you take care of business and a lot of the guys figure it out, I think you'll be fine. But again, you never want to lose. Lose a bad taste in your mouth.
yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, big week coming up. You got Texas,
Yep.
you know, rival, and then Ole Miss, who's kind of in this exact same position as
Yeah.
the Ags are. Played two of the top teams in the SEC with Vanderbilt in Florida, and going over against them. And so, and then yeah, and so I really just don't really know what to expect out of this next weekend, out of either team, honestly.
Yeah, they've already announced the starters. It's going to be Shane Sadejo, 15 innings, 2 runs. For Texas, it's going to be LeBaron Johnson, um, 2-1 with a 2.96 ERA with 27 innings pitched. I watched him when they played LSU. He was phenomenal in that game against a team that really has hit right. He's really good. I imagine we'll see Chris Cortez for A&M out of the bullpen. And then I'm sure with Texas, we'll see Duplantier at some point.
Mhm.
He kind of always seems to find himself in the middle of these great
Yeah.
midweek games. few notes of Texas. Obviously, they are riding a 14-game winning streak. All of them at home. They're 3-0 in conference, 18-7. I mean, it's been a little bit, but they are 1-5 on the road. Obviously, that first weekend they really didn't look very good. They were figuring a lot of things out, and then they went up to Fullerton. But I think it's been a different team that got off that plane. Few notes for Texas. Peyton Powell has been just raking the ball for Texas. Porter Brown, I think, is going to be another tough out. And then the experienced bats of, Dylan Campbell, Eric Kennedy, Mitchell Daly, even to some extent. But I think it'll be interesting to see how they play that. LeBaron will be on short rest because I just looked it up, and Sunday he threw 50 pitches. I don't know what we'll see. I mean, Pierce likes to get weird in these games. I mean, we saw what they rolled out last year, and Schloss, I think, in the grand scheme of things, as a fan, every game matters, and I never want to lose to Texas. I mean, we haven't lost to them, I think, in 5 years, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how they kind of play it with both teams' bullpen, because obviously Texas Oklahoma State is a big circle weekend in the Big 12. A&M Ole Miss is again a prove it series for both teams.
Yeah, 100%. And on Tuesday, it's going to be a packed house at Olson, and so
It's
the
sold
Ags are going
out.
to have
It is
sold
sold
out.
out.
It's going to be crazy, and so the Aggies are going to have a lot of momentum behind them coming in. But Texas is going to come fired up too, like both teams do every single year, and
Yeah,
so
I mean it gets.
regardless of like what A&M's done the past 2 weeks and what Texas has done the past 2 weeks, it's going to be a really good game with a lot of high energy.
Yep. I'll go ahead and say it. I don't think we see Lucas Gordon or Zane Morehouse. I know that's
Okay,
like my hot take. I don't think we see the Friday. I really
really?
hope we don't see Lucas Gordon.
Yeah.
Let's see. Like I said, LeBaron threw 50 pitches on Saturday, not Sunday.
Mhm.
So I was
Yeah.
reading that wrong. Um, Duplantier threw 17 pitches. Like I said, I think we'll see him. We'll probably see Ace Whitehead to some extent. I don't think we see Zane Morehouse. Think we see Travis Steele or Charlie Hurley. I think LeBaron. I think we're going to see him, and then obviously we're going to see Duplantier at some point.
Yep.
And LeBaron's a really, really good pitcher for Texas. I think he would be in a lot. I mean, he would be in our weekend rotation if I'm being honest
Yeah,
with you.
100%. Yeah, I agree. And I think if the Ags stay with Texas on Tuesday, I think it's going to be a really high scoring game because Texas, their front half of the lineup, I mean,
Is
they're on fire,
stacked. I mean,
stacked.
they've been
I
on
mean,
fire. Peyton
uh,
Powell.
yeah, 397 for Powell, 360 for Brown. Kennedy's hitting 356. I mean, yeah, I mean, especially when you have some of your midweek guys pitching, I think it's going to be a really high scoring game.
Yeah, and Eric Kennedy's a redshirt senior and about to graduate without ever beating Texas A&M. I bet you that one's been talked about a few times.
Yeah,
um,
100%.
yeah, I bet you he's mentioned that a few times. And again, it's weird too because every year that A&M and Texas have played, I've felt like Texas had the better team, and this is
Mhm.
kind of the first time where you can sit and say that A&M and Texas are even. But again, Porter Brown has been on an absolute tear. Uh,
Yep.
he's got his average up to 360. Um, leaving uh, leaving Arlington, it was under 100. Peyton Powell, again, he's hitting almost 400 and has been around 400. He had a super long hitting streak earlier in
Mhm.
the year too. He did go over on the weekend, but again, he's still. It's not that he's due more than he's bad.
That's
And then
that's that's even more impressive, honestly, that he's still
yeah,
hitting 397.
yeah, Eric Kennedy. I mean, he always seems to find himself. He's on a 10-game hitting streak. Half of them are multi-hit games. Granted, I mean, we can sit here and say that the competition was bad for Texas, but as we found out with LSU and found out with Wake Forest, this isn't an indication that they're bad. I think that they took care. It takes a ton of talent to take care of business against some of these inferior teams. And again, that trio of Powell, Brown, and Kennedy could give A&M pitchers nightmares. It
Yeah.
really could. And
Yeah.
that doesn't even include Dylan Campbell, who is another phenomenal Texas bat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I honestly have no idea what to expect on Tuesday.
Hopefully it's not a wind game and the wind affects it, but again,
Yeah.
I think this will be the last time Texas comes to A&M in a midweek. So a little bit different atmosphere after this. After this, there's no more meaningless midweeks.
Yeah.
Every single game after this matters. Um, like I said, too, Texas plays Oklahoma State, so I don't think they'll expend their bullpen. I don't really see them doing that, and it's a great way for their younger guys to get pitching against high quality opponents. And then we'll move into the SEC series. Ole Miss sits at 15-9, 0-6 in the SEC, so they were 15-3. Started out really hot, 4-0. Lost Friday to Maryland, came back, beat them 3 times. Lost the Louisiana Tech midweek, and then they chicken shit won that one too. So they really should be 14-10. But again, the SEC teams that they played, Vandy and Florida. Vandy beat them 12-2, 8-0, 7-2. Florida beat them in a doubleheader, 9-7, 12-8, and then Sunday 7-4. There's a lot of guys still from this Ole Miss roster that won the national championship, and then a few new faces for them as well. But again, this is still an Ole Miss team that won the national championship. They have Ethan Groff, the Tulane transfer, who I think is their best player. Jacob Gonzalez, Kemp Alderman. I always mess it up. Peyton Chatier, I think is how you pronounce it. So again,
I think it's Chatinier, but
it
yeah.
is
Yeah.
Chatier. Now that I heard you say it, it is Chatier. He's going to be a senior. Cy-Fair product, actually. I found that out last summer.
Yeah, and Ole Miss, you know, they have a lot of guys on fire at the plate. Not on fire, but consistent throughout the year. A lot of guys over 300. Calvin Harris, he's hitting 379. Kemp is hitting 363, and Groff is hitting 352. Like you said, stud in the top of their order.
Yeah, and Jacob Gonzalez is a high-end SEC shortstop. He's probably going to be one of the first SEC shortstops, or not SEC shortstops drafted, period. And again, Ethan Groff has kind of played himself into that. Really the only good thing to come out of Tulane in a long time. The other one too, TJ McCants, who had the big hit in the national championship. Again, their pitching has kind of been a question mark for them. Just obviously with the loss of Hunter Elliott, I don't think he's projected to come back, but I could see it because I think he's kind of had not a low impact injury, but from what I've heard from reports, I don't think it's a very long term injury. So we might see him this weekend, might not. I doubt we do. But again, Jack Doherty's another high end SEC arm, but it's a little bit weird because I think this is the inverse of Tennessee last weekend. I think that Ole Miss has a ton of really talented SEC bats. Their pitching's kind of not suspect. It's still high end, but I think the strength of this team is definitely the bats.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you can just go back through their last 6 SEC games. Gave up against Vanderbilt 12-8-7 in the 3 games there, and then against Florida 9-12-7. And so, giving up a lot of runs out of their off their pitching staff.
Yeah, and I think this is another. I think this one's a very interesting series because we always say you can't win on the road or you can't rely to win on the road in the SEC, but when you get swept at home, you got to steal series somewhere. And A&M obviously getting swept on the road isn't ideal, but to sit and be 2-7 in the SEC versus 3-6, or even 1-8 in the SEC, if both these, I mean 1-8, the way LSU's playing, I think that's pretty much a death sentence to try and catch LSU. And I mean, both these teams have regional host aspirations. Obviously, A&M and Ole Miss do, and they need to. I think that the team that they're really chasing is going to be Arkansas, and then the third team out of the East, whether it be Florida, Missouri, South Carolina, that whole group. to try and get a host because I think that there'll be 4 ones. But again, the schedule for Ole Miss is A&M, Arkansas, Super Bulldog weekend, which always gets crazy for Ole Miss, LSU, and then the season kind of gets lighter. And A&M, we play Auburn, Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, which Missouri, Kentucky, it has kind of turned into a
Yeah.
little bit tougher of
Not
a series than it was a
not
month
what it
ago.
has been in the past at all.
Not even like projections. I mean, Missouri
Yeah.
swept Tennessee, who just swept A&M. Kentucky,
Mhm.
it owns the long. I think they had the longest winning streak on Sunday before they lost to Bama. But again, they sit at 5-1 in the SEC, and they're gonna, and that's at Kentucky, which is never an easy place to go play because their fans really don't care. And I think A&M kind of thrives off of fan engagement. But again, these are the series A&M you have to win at home. Ole
Yeah.
Miss, you got to steal one. You got to steal some of these series coming up. This one's going to be a dogfight for 2 teams that are fighting for their SEC lives.
Yeah, for both teams, this is definitely one of the most important weekends of their entire season.
What do you think we see from the pitching staff for A&M?
I think Schloss keeps Detmer at 1, honestly.
Mhm.
As much inconsistency as he's shown lately, I think he's honestly, I think he has to stick with Detmer just because
Yeah.
of how inconsistent the lineup is every week. I think you need someone who's, you know, solidified in some major role in the team. And so I think he's going to stick with Detmer. And gosh, I don't know what he's going to do with Lansing in game 2. I really don't.
Yeah. And I know last year, Micah Dallas was almost the ace with the 1-2 with Dittmer, and Dittmer never wavered out of that one. But he did
Mhm.
bench Micah Dallas, but I felt like there were other people that were more deserving last year when Micah Dallas got benched. I wouldn't say benched, he got bumped. But this year, I mean, do you really want to say Wansing is your ace or Chris Cortez is your ace?
Yeah.
I don't think really anybody, I think the only one that's truly earned a spot is Evan Ashback. Evan
Yep.
Ashback, Ty Sexton, and Brad Rudis, I think, are the
Yeah.
only ones. And even then, Brad Rudis was kind of shaky. But I wouldn't trust Ty Sexton to go out there and be a Friday guy. I wouldn't trust
No.
Wansing to be a Friday guy. Um, I think we see the bullpen game led by Lampkin Saturday. I think that's my bold take.
Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
go. I think we go Detmer Friday, Lansing / bullpen game Saturday. I think we see Sexton. I think we see a ton of our bullpen guys. And then Sunday is Wansing and Chris Cortez right out of him, or maybe
Okay.
flip flopped with one of those two, because I think that those I think Wansing has a bounce back weekend, but I think he has to not be punished, but I think he has earned himself to be out of that Saturday spot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, just shake something up. I mean, I
Yeah,
get there's been a lot of
yeah, shakes
shaking
up.
up
Yeah,
throughout the lineup.
Insanity
Yeah.
is doing the same thing over and expecting
Uh-huh.
different results. Um, Outfield wise, I'll find out tomorrow about Minnick and his injury stuff,
Mhm.
but the I think we see. All right, let's go ahead and go through it and get the ones that we know.
Yeah.
I think we
Jace,
see.
obviously.
Yeah, I think we see Warner at third. We see. I mean, barring him tweaking an injury or something like that,
Mhm.
Warner's going to be at third. Haas is at short. I think Bard is the catcher all weekend. Jace will play a corner outfield spot. Boast will Boast Moss. I think Boast and Moss will play first and second. I could see Jace playing
Okay.
first, or and someone using the DH or a DH. I don't know. I don't really like Caden Kent, Kason Wells, or Tab Tracy in a DH spot at all.
No, I
I think
don't
that's the,
either.
and I don't even like Jordan Thompson in a DH spot because that's the part that's a little bit crazy because you can say Targosh hasn't been seeing the ball well, but again, who are you going to put in a DH spot? I feel
Yeah,
like
but I do think that they're gonna put Moss at first, and I just think
he'll
you
DH.
got
He'll DH one weekend. He'll DH one game as well.
yeah, he'll
I've
DH
noticed
one
that he
game, but
does that.
I just think you gotta at least for 1 or 2 games, you gotta bench Targac. Give him a mental break or something.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's waning on him when you lead the SEC in hitting, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you can't hit a beach ball. that's definitely a
Yeah.
frustrating thing. I know we've all kind of been through slumps as baseball players,
Mhm.
and I'm sure he'll get out of it. Um, yeah, but again, I think Jordan Thompson's kind of the same thing where he had a bunch of big hits down the stretch. He started slow last year, though. That's the part that's kind of crazy to me. Is
Yeah.
I want to say he only got in there because of an injury.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
want to say
maybe.
that was the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the outfield, I think Case and Wells, I think he stays in that leadoff role, um, at least for game 1, and then I don't know where he's gonna play. I don't know if he's gonna play center or right or whatever, but I do think like sometime throughout the weekend, Slosh is gonna go with Tucker, and I have a sneaky suspicion that Travis Chestnut is gonna sneak his way in the lineup somewhere.
Chestnut.
I think Chestnut. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's do a side by side of Jordan Thompson, Tab Tracy, and Kason Wells, because I would be really interested to see how close they are. First off, Kason Wells is 5'8", 180 freshman. Jordan Thompson is 5'10", 170. Tab Tracy's a little bit thicker, but I don't think I think he's still a glove first guy. I don't think that he's somebody that you
Yeah.
DH. But um, Kason Wells hitting 238. Before the weekend, he was hitting 281. Jordan Thompson is hitting 218. He is a little bit hotter, but again, he he's pretty much stayed around 220 in SEC play, which is I think where it kind of matters.
Yeah.
Um, Tab Tracy only played in 2 SEC games. I don't realize he was hitting the ball as well as he is. He's hitting 324, but
Oh, wow.
again, in SEC play, he's 0 for 4.
Yeah.
0 for 4 with 2Ks, and really since that Houston game, he really hasn't played that much after he went 0 for 4 with 2Ks. Um, but again, he's a sophomore, and then Stanley Tucker, I don't think has any kind of sample size. I think he plays sporadically, but
I really wanna see him this weekend. I wanna see him get a real chance.
I still I want to know what's up with him because I feel like
Yeah.
he has every time he's been out there, he's been a spark plug. I mean, he plays the game with tremendous
Mhm.
passion,
Yeah.
and that's
A
not to
lot
say
of
the other
energy.
guys don't, but I mean, he's a big energy guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, he's a part of the 2 weirdest plays in A&M, so that's the other thing. But it I don't I don't know what the answer is with Wells, Thompson, Tracy, and even Kent to some extent,
Yeah.
because I think Kent we kind of do forget that Kent only really played because Warner was injured.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not like he earned himself into the lineup. I know he's another guy who I think is around that chopping block line. Um, let's see. I know he's hitting way down there as it loads. Um,
257 for Kent.
what do you have the full stats in front of you?
I do.
What's it in SEC play? What's he hitting, or what did his average go from?
SEC play. Let me see. Oh, it's not showing it there.
Oh, let me see. I don't think Stanley. I think Stanley's only had the 2 hits, so I think, or the two or three at bats. So I think his is going to be really buoyed. But
Yeah.
I I don't know what the answer is. That's the other part that's so crazy. Is
Yeah.
most of the times when somebody like sucks as a fan, you can sit there and be like, "Why is this guy pitching?" Or "Why is this guy in the lineup? He's a for sure out." Is there's like 7 or 8 guys who either have earned themselves just enough to be given consideration, but not really blown you away, and
Mhm.
then the other guys is there's enough sample size in the past of, hey, this guy last year took a while to come along. Hey, this guy last year led the SEC in RBIs. It it's weird because I'm sure Sloss would be like, I just want somebody to. I know he probably never roots for people to do bad, but I'm sure he just wants somebody to be like, hey, step up, take this role, like Bard
Yeah.
did at the catching spot. And I don't think any of those outfielders have. I mean, none of them played bad or look lost, but I don't think
They're
any
all
of them
playing the
have.
same though.
Yeah,
Is in my
but and here's
opinion.
the other thing too. In the pressers, Schloss talked about not being able to hit the fastball. It's somebody in that group that Schloss is hinting at is not able to hit the fastball, and I don't have enough advanced analytical data to see who that is, but it's somebody in that group who's not ready to play SEC baseball.
Yeah, yeah. And the other scary part is they're all young, and so you don't want to kill anyone's confidence,
Yeah,
and you don't want to you also don't want to put anyone too quick on the chopping block because they are all young or
yeah,
straight out of JUCO. But you also it's getting further in the season. You need to start making some
yeah. You
making some
gotta
severe
you gotta
changes.
figure it
Yeah.
out. I mean,
Hmm.
you can always slide people in and out, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Sloss at this point in the season would like to have his 9 and roll like he did in Omaha all
Yeah.
throughout those series where he wasn't really speculating anything. He was just like, okay, we'll get everybody in here. Like we know what our lineup's going to be. It's just a matter of the order. But again, we've said it a few times and about how you don't want to kill their confidence. I mean, there is numerous people in college baseball, especially recent A&M baseball, that we can sit at and say, okay, this guy's confidence was killed a little bit because he kind of got brought up too quickly.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say that was Kai's issue, but I know he never really saw the ball very well.
Hmm.
Shane Schmidt was, I think, another guy who the moment kind of got too big for him, and I don't think he's really done anything post A&M. And he was another guy that kind of was a JUCO guy who kind of got brought on a little bit too quick and just flopped and never really found himself in the lineup. But
Yeah.
I think that's what Schloss is a little bit worried about. And I mean, he has the proven track record of getting teams to the playoff, having them competitive in the playoffs, and rolling from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
100%.
mean, I don't think there a season that he's missed the tournament.
Not that I can remember
Let me
at
see.
all.
I mean, he hasn't missed it at A&M. Let's see. Let's see if he did it at TCU. I don't think so because TCU had a bunch of really, really good teams back to back. Let's see. Nope. He had. Well, hold on. This one only goes back. Okay, so 2004, Schlossnagel's first year, regional, 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 regional. Let's see. It would not. It would even if it was a year. I think it would be like 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. So that's another thing to look at is you hope that Schloss is going to figure it out somehow, some way. He'll get the Ags to that point to where maybe they're in that Ole Miss position last year to where they just get
Yeah.
hot at the very end of the season and then they just
Mhm.
make a deep run.
I I don't think they have the pitching for that, but I could be wrong. And I
Yeah.
really hope I am wrong because that was kind of weird because I felt like that was what we talked about to start the year was this is the strength of this team. Their pitching staff's a lot better than last year. Trust Nate Yeskie. Let's see.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the SEC is a whole different breed of baseball, and I think that you can kind of pad your stats against some shittier opponents. No, so I I don't think Schloss has ever missed the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, in his entire coaching career, I don't think he's ever missed the tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, I take that back. 2018,
Oh wow. Okay.
28. So 1 year in 19, he's missed it once, and even then, he was in the Big 12 championship, so they had a chance to go. And then I'll just double check and make sure 2019 didn't have. Yeah, so 1 year.
Wow.
1 year the wheels came off for him, and they went 10-13 in conference. But other than that, they've always always made it. So
Yeah.
trust Sloss. He
Yeah.
always figures these things out. Um, he's him and Yeski. They're a good duo. All right, predictions on the week. We got 4 games. Got Texas and then Ole Miss. All of them at home. So a little nice little 5-game homestand. What's your prediction?
I say 2-2 on the week. And I don't know if if one of those wins is gonna come from, or if one of the wins will come from the Texas game, and then one in the series, or two in the series, and
Do you think it's one or
lose
the
one.
other?
I think it's one or the other, and so I say 2-2 on the week. I have no idea what to expect for tomorrow, but I say 2-2 on the week.
So I think realistic. I mean, obviously dream scenario we're going for, but realistic kind of meme scenario is I really do see us losing that midweek against Texas. I don't think our pitching staff is set up to face their lineup. I think that where Texas was last year is where we are, and where A&M
Yeah.
was last year, Texas is they're kind of meeting at they're meeting in the middle. I really want to sleep Ole Miss. I think that'd be hilarious to roll
Yeah.
into Super Bulldog weekend and both of those
Yeah.
teams be winless, because Mississippi State always has Ole Miss's number. But I think realistically, 2-2, I would be very happy with.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the midweek you always want to win it, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say who cares, because I think that a lot of Texas A&M fans will want that game, but
Yeah.
I would trade losing to Texas to go
For a
2-1.
winning.
Yep, and you're
100%.
3-6, rolling to Auburn, sweep Auburn, you're right back in the SEC hunt,
Yeah.
and you're right back hosting a regional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Hayden Haas has a really, really huge week.
He's already had huge weeks.
I know. I think he's gonna have another one.
Is that all right? What's
That's
your
that's
hot
my that's
take?
my player. That's my player of the week.
That
And
can't
then
be a hot take.
it's not a
That's
hot
like
take.
saying,
You're right.
"Oh, Otani's gonna win
That's a
MVP."
prediction, not a hot take. That's a
All right,
prediction,
what's
not
your
a hot
hot
take.
take?
Hot take. I'm gonna say Tucker gets a chance and he
You
runs
think
with it.
Tucker?
Yeah.
My hot take, and this is a scorching hot take. A&M has a starting pitcher pitch into the 7th inning in an SEC series. I know that's been
Okay.
a tall task, but I think it'll be Wansing or Detmer. I think one of those two bounce back. I just think that they are both too talented to not come out and have a good outing like that.
Yeah.
And outfield wise, I think Tab Tracy plays himself into the lineup and takes over. I
Okay.
think
Wow.
that's my bold prediction. And then um, pie in the sky, Brett Minnick pinch hits, or
Okay,
he
that would
pitches
be
one game,
awesome.
pie in the
Yeah.
sky.
All right.
I think he's
That'd be
still in a
awesome.
split. I know he was in a split last week during Rice.
Okay. Yeah.
Any
That'd
final
be good to see.
words?
Ban mid-game interviews. Get rid of them, man. Get rid of them. But
Well, I
yeah.
believe that that's all we have time for. This has been Jake McKeever and Marshall Ingram with the Texas A&M version of the weekend rotation. One more time, want to thank our sponsors, Home Field Apparel. Use code CBC15, get 15% off your order. Get all your A&M stuff. Head out Tuesday. A&M students. This game is going to be a sellout, but they've said that they're not going to turn people away. So head on out to the 12. We're Aggie Alley, and then obviously Ole Miss. None of those games are going to sell out. Be there and where we're in. See everybody. We'll see you next Monday. And if it's a really crazy series, we might even do a Sunday series.